we should stop using deception and coercion in our methods to gather intel and information, which are basically the same thing, due to practical and ethical reasons, and most of those ethical reasons actually relate directly to the practical reasons. One of them is that we do not apply these standards to our own citizens, and the fact that we can do this to foreigners creates the sense that we are hypocrites, and that is a giant idea that we have to tackle, because this idea is very strong in mostly Middle Eastern countries, but most of the Eastern countries, and this makes it very hard for us to win the sympathy of the people of those countries, and we have to win the sympathy of those countries in order to help regional allies against our fight against terror or increasing worldwide security. We need that, but if we have most of the population thinking we are bad, we have these dirty intelligence agents disrespecting the human rights of their citizens, torturing them, like in the cases of Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, we will lose a lot of respect, and we will have people chanting death to America, death to West, more than we would have today. So this ethical standard also applies as a practical harm. No, not yet, thank you. But more than that, there are direct practical reasons we should stop doing this. First, how do we get most of our intel? Well, we from time to time listen to telephones of suspected terrorists, and this is actually something we can achieve very well, and this gives us a lot of results. We don't believe we have to decept directly into these individuals' lives or coerce them through use of torture and violence or the threat of violence. So no. Oh, go ahead.
Wouldn't you say that surveilling, for instance, tapping into the phones of someone is against a form of deception and violating their privacy and human right?
Well, it's a human right, we do agree to that, but it's not deception. Deception is deception, making them believe something, and another issue is there to believe. But we do not think that is the most important thing, we believe informants are very important. Who are informants? Informants are either members of terrorist groups or sympathizers of terrorist groups, or those who infiltrate into terrorist groups. But these people have to trust us because they are doing something very risky and very brave, infiltrating or sometimes coming our side and helping us combat ISIS or giving information regarding what ISIS does, what Al-Qaeda does. And these people need to trust us. If we can, and we do, always disregard the rights of these citizens, these people will have a harder time to trust us because they know that they apply different standards to Arabs or Americans. And when they know this, they will feel that they can be deceived, they can be used as tools, they can be disregarded, and they have, in order to make them trust us, we need to behave in a different manner. No, thank you. No, thank you. And these people are one of the most important resources of intelligence. In the end, there are things that intelligence agents can do, and there's a limit to that. But most of what we get comes from informants, because we do not have the same physical capacities an informant does. And when we keep behaving that, these people, not only for the fact that they cannot trust us, but also for the fact that they cannot. They start to feel more danger. They start to have this ideological idea that we might not be those good guys he thinks we are. So this also has this ideological attitude that we are bad people, but also the fact that they don't know if they can trust us, and this is a very important matter. Don't take that. And we think these other tools are the main sources of intel, and for the sake of disregarding human rights, which we uphold as the West, and that's the reason we intervene mostly in world affairs and terrorism, because we uphold human rights and we are against terrorism and the death of innocent individuals. But there's one more very important reason, which is actually mostly an ethical reason, but it is such an ethical reason that it cannot be disregarded in any case. Our citizens are protected by the Western states. Western states provide, putting aside welfare and economical stuff, basic human rights, and that state makes sure you don't get this. People do not break those rights you owe. But non-Western countries that we, foreigners, let's say, outside the West, do not have the same countries that support their rights so vigorously. Most Eastern and non-Western countries do not actually support human rights to the levels we do. And even if they want to do, they do not have the capacities that we have. Think of an Iraqi who has been deceived or coerced by Americans, like in the case of Abu Ghraib, like in the case of Guantanamo. This guy has only you to trust. We are the only physical entity, state, that can make sure this guy gets his human rights, because their own state, Iraq, is actually not a state. It has been destroyed or so on. If it's not destroyed, they are usually authoritarian. If they are not authoritarian, they are ineffective at providing these basic human rights. So we are the only ones who can make sure these people get some basic human rights treatment, and we believe that is the most important thing, because these people only have us. But this is more and more important, because there is a great chance these are innocent people. When intelligence agents are up to finishing an objective, they are so much focused and they are quite driven by nationalist agenda. When you are so focused and so driven by nationalist agenda, you cannot, from most of the time, see if the guy is innocent or not. You just have to take your chance. You just want to take your chance because you are doing very stressful and important business with a nationalistic mindset. So you don't really check to that in detail if these guys are innocent or not. So you just make the call to coerce them or to deceive them in order to get results or to make sure there are results or not. So you do not evaluate the possibility that these people are innocent people. So what do we get in the end? Intelligence agents so vigorously coercing and deceiving these people who might most likely be innocent because they do not. That creates a worse effect in which these agencies trample the human rights of innocents in many cases, and this creates a lot of hate towards the West, which we do not want again.
I'd like to thank the speaker very much for their speech and the to the opposition.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I move on into my constructive case and explain to you, first of all, how this is necessary in order to be able to fight that kind of terror, and second of all, how it is the responsibility of the West to actually prevent attacks, both in its own grounds, the grounds of those organizations that they operate at. I am going to be creating some rebuttal of what we have heard from side. Ladies and gentlemen, they came up here and they told us that, we do not really practice that kind of stuff on our own people, on our own citizens, and therefore we shouldn't practice the same practices on foreign citizens. The thing is that is not true, right? We have police undercover operations trying to fight drug crime. We do have always cases where we do place agents or policemen trying to go undercover in order to be able to infiltrate an organization. And I will be explaining to you why this is necessary in order to be able to infiltrate that kind of organization. Because one thing that they are kind of ignoring is the fact that SIGINT is signal intelligence. It's not as efficient as human intelligence is, because exactly of how careful those organizations are, right? Second of all, they told us that, and they said that, signal intelligence, it's okay, tapping their phone, it's okay. It's not okay posing as an agent trying to infiltrate the organization. No. They also came up here and they told us, they tried to prove to us that, that we do not value the rights of those people. The thing is that those people do usually have usually have gone into not valuing the human rights of other people as well, right? Because we are talking about organizations that are known to have been committing human atrocities. When we are talking about Boko Haram, and we are knowing that, which literally means that Western education is a sin, right? And has killed over 5,000 kids since 2010. We cannot be ignoring the fact that those people are not really people who are valuing the human rights of those girls, of those people. We believe that when you have gone into that, you do lose your rights as well, right? You do lose the right of your privacy when you are endangering other people's lives, because you do have some rights and you are able to maintain your rights as long as your rights do not start interfering with other people's human lives, and especially with lives, which is what we value most today. So moving on to my first guest. Moving on to my first argument. Before I do so, yes.
If you know for sure that this particular individual is somehow related to Boko Haram, this means that you can legally arrest them and legally get all information.
Thank
Here we're talking about
you. The thing with terrorist organizations is that often enough it's very, very hard to link those people directly with documentation to their actions and the actions of the organizations, right? So Osama bin Laden had not been killed and had gotten the right to a fair trial or had gotten to be tried, we wouldn't have been able to actually link the organization's actions with his orders, because his signature was not legally on any documentation. That doesn't really mean that he was not morally responsible for those deaths. The same goes for Hitler, ladies and gentlemen, right? Hitler was never, if he hadn't committed suicide, it would have been very hard to prove that he actually ordered the death of so many people. He did order those actions because he never signed anything. So the legal party there, often enough, is not enough for us to go on that route, or to go on the route of arresting these people. Plus, if we do arrest those people, we do lose a chance, I was really expecting to you today, to take down the organization as a whole, right? Most of those organizations do not have a clear structure. They have a cell structure. That means that they have different parts operating in different areas of the map, right? No, but and who is leading those parts is not necessarily clear, right? So we might have a suspicion and a proof for one only member, but that member might not be the one who is actually giving the information, who is giving the orders in order to do so. That also, what they usually do is that they operate with human intelligence, right? They're very careful how they transfer information. They transfer information by person to person, on a person to person basis. And that is very hard to infiltrate, which means that in order to do so, only another person can do so. So in order to be able to infiltrate the organization, deception is necessary in order to be able to find out what the next action of its individual sector is going to be, what the next attack is going to be, what their greater plan is, right? And if our people manage to get higher up on the ranks, that's when we're going to be able to take down the organization. Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden was killed exactly with human information intelligence. It was not killed because of siege. No, he was very careful not to be, and he was very smart not to be using his cell phone in order to communicate with the ranks below him for the ranks to take the cells down. But what happened exactly in Al-Qaeda was that our operations were so well coordinated and the cells were infiltrated so to such a level where we were able all at the same time to dominant and weaken itself, weakening the organization as a whole in total. And we believe that this is why it is necessary to have those human intelligence, because it's the only way to actually prevent and infiltrate those organizations and to actually fight successfully those organizations. For the above reasons, we are more than happy to oppose this motion today.
I'm going to speak for my speech and I'm going to the
Today, I would like to talk about like how we are losing the trust within the Western public. It's gonna be my first point, and then I'm gonna explain how it is harm to foreigners and their countries and our relations. That will be my second point. But first, some reputations. Like they basically talk about like. We can do this to those people because they're not disrespectful and they're like we don't know if like they might do something bad and they're like killing people and stuff. But there's a big problem. You don't know if this person is really guilty. That is the big problem in here. And as my friend already said, as an intelligence agency, what's your job? Your job is trying to find out the information. And of course, an innocent person would say, I didn't do anything, I don't know anything. But what you think as an intelligence agency directly, he or she is lying. So what's the result of it? They're pushing those people, they're torturing them, they're raping them, and what is the result? They're not getting actually information really, and there's a really big harm to those people emotionally and physically. And as the opposition side said, they're mostly constructed as cells, so they really don't know what is the next person up on them. So, and their example is also not working, because when we find the Bin Laden, we find it with the information from our informants. What we did in this case, we create a relationship and we create a trust, and with this trust, we make people to feel confident to give us information, and then we get the information, and that's how we can achieve something. Because when we did torture people, we might torture someone really innocent, and this is a really harmful things to do, and at the end we might get any results as well. So for my points. First of all, like, we're gonna lose the trust within the Western public. How? When I'm doing those torture things and the other stuff to those foreign peoples, basically I'm being hypocritical, because I'm saying to my citizens, look, I do care about all the human rights. You have to be free. Freedom is the most important thing, and your rights is the most important thing. I'm gonna do everything to protect you. But what I do is, I can do actually to show my own public, I can do everything to you if I have any thoughts of that you can be guilty. And this is the most scary case for a citizen, because I do want to trust my country, and I do want to trust that my country will do anything regarding the human rights. And as a citizen, it is really annoys me that because I am human and that person is also human, and we don't know if he's really guilty or we don't know if he's innocent. And also, plus that point, we do really have other options. We can do. We can even surveil those people, or we can go and talk to them, and we can create a trust atmosphere, and with the like the local corporations, we can actually create the best method against the terror or the other issues. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that surveillance is not deception, but could you define how you see deception? Because we on the opposition side think that surveilling people without them knowing is definitely deception.
Okay, look, the deception is different than the surveillance, because I do also listen to some of the phone calls that I might see them suspicious, but this is different than deception and coercion, because when do I do the deception? I get a girl and I do rape her to get the information. Yes, that's true. You rape them, or like you take a guy and you're like I don't know, like punching him, giving electrical shocks, and those kind of things. These are happening. These are the intelligence agencies do to get the information, and they do not stop until they get really the information, and this is really a big problem. And the second thing. No, and the second thing, it also creates a hate to us from the foreigners' side, because when do they learn those things are happening, and when they learn, because not all of the people that you tortured are really guilty. You are mostly torturing the innocent people, and when people find out that you're torturing innocent people, they're thinking that you're a horrible country, because you are the one who said, I'm here for the human rights, and you are the one here that's again violating this. And
last chance.
When you do this, foreigners are feeling really comfortable if they are living in your country as well. Because, for example, when something happened to like this kind of thing happened to a Turkish citizen, for example, in a West country, I do feel also uncomfortable as a Turkish, because because for them I am a possible suspicious. I might be possible suspicious for them as well, and I know that they can do the same thing to me as well, and this creates a really uncomfortable situation for me to live in that country, because I know that they don't care about me, because I'm nothing for them. I'm just the only thing that they can benefit from me, and this is a really harmful thing to society, because the society must be gathered together, and this is something really violates the people's life and the human rights as well. That's all. Thank you.
I'm likely to speak their speech and the vote to the Deputy Secretary of the Opposition.
Chair Speaker, it's funny how we have an opening government that does mind torturing or physical undercover operations, but have absolutely no problem with listening and tapping the phone calls of many people out there, or they don't mind putting informants at personal risk in operations. So we see that they have two different standards and they are planning in a different way. What we tell you is that all of this is acceptable because they agree with us. They consider that it's necessary for us to gather information, and they consider that it's necessary enough for us to use informants, for us to use all this surveillance. So we tell you that not only it's necessary for that, but we also would extend this into undercover operations and we would say to coercion and deception of foreign citizens. So moreover, they have exaggerated about the number of people who will be tortured. Like the way they portray it is us going out there and arresting people and putting them into cells with no due process or anything, and then torturing them for many years. But even the best case on their table, which is right now Guantanamo, had 100 prisoners over a series of decades, right? So it's not like millions of people out there. It's a very specific whom we arrest. It's most specific who they torture to get information. Of course, innocent people will be arrested. Of course, innocent people may be coerced in ways that they shouldn't. But we believe that it's much, given that how many problems have been prevented, given that how small the number of people that have been coerced is, it is still worth it not to prevent all the problems that are happening out there. Then, ladies and gentlemen, they told us use informants. But first of all, as I said, isn't that a form of deception? And secondly, even if it isn't, even if we agree that the informants are a form of deception, they said that we ought to send native Iraqi people that would stay long enough in an undercover operation that they would be able to infiltrate this operation and gather enough information for us to prevent an attack. So because we believe that this is an inefficient way of doing it, and because it is a long shot, we believe that it's necessary for us to get as much information from people who are in this organization. Then they also assume that we have enough time to do so, right? That we have enough time for those people to infiltrate this organization over decades, over many years in order to gather information, which we don't. Often those attacks happen over there, and we need to act at once when they do. No, thank you. And then we say, we believe that today we say they are not mutually exclusive. We tell you use both this coercion that they tell you and also the ones that we are telling you about at the same time. Then they also keep telling us about hostility from other countries. How other countries should be hostile towards us because we are arresting their people and we are torturing, coercing them or deceiving them. But we say that often we have operations between countries assisting each other in order to tackling down one of these operations. Right now, for instance, Germany could have a terrorist organization and then we ask for help from the United States in order to get these people. So we don't believe that there is such a huge hostility on the international level between the countries on how they tackle this kind of issues. No, thank you, sir. Then they tell us that, oh my God, so, because let me put you an example, for instance, of how often these are very complex organizations. We cannot gather enough information to tackle down big people. That's why we need loads of them. So we tell you, we do not expect to arrest someone for them to tell us, oh, you will find the head of the organization at this place at that time, go and arrest them. But what we expect, for instance, could be small information as, oh, you know, this delivery happened there, and then putting the puzzle together in order to get enough information to have due process. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not advocate for not arresting people in the right way. We're not advocating against due process or right to court. We are telling that in those cases, when you cannot have those, you don't have enough proof to have those, it is those cases that you need information. We're telling that we need this information the way we need to acquire them, because the organizations are very complex and we need to achieve them. So, yeah, so I will talk about in my case about the following things. I'll talk about how it is our responsibility as the Western countries to do so, and secondly, how it is no abuse is happening on what we are proposing, and we believe that a mechanism right now out that prevent abuse from happening. So let's say responsibility. First of all, we believe that we have the need to protect our own people. Like as Western countries, when there is a threat of an attack, we need to protect them. Not only from the imminent threat, which is people dying in an attack, or people dying, for instance, of shootings or something, but also because we have to live under terror, right? So whenever you go on a plane right now, you also have a fear that a terrorist attack may happen. So we believe that this terror needs to be prevented in the best way. Thank you. And us dealing with it in the best way, it gives the image that we are doing something to prevent them. So we believe that people are feeling much more safe when our nations, Western countries, go out there and arrest people and gather as much information as possible and working hectically towards it. So we believe that this security that people are feeling is necessary and the Western countries should ensure it for them. Next, we believe that we need, thank you. We tell you that we need to prevent violation of human rights. So Eleni told you about ISIS or Boko Haram who right now slaughtering people out there for various reasons. So we believe that we have the right, we have the duty to get as many information from them. So we are telling you that because those organizations have sworn to be against the Western countries, we believe that there's absolutely no way that we can get information that way because they're not talking over the phone or exchanging messages over Facebook or sending emails, and also because they won't give us information willingly and won't find informants who would risk their lives in such a way to give it to us. We believe that we have to arrest those people that we believe has some remote connection with it, and we have to arrest them and then ask them questions that may lead us to some way of preventing attacks. No, thank you. So we believe that exactly because there is such a need and so many attacks are happening out there, both towards us and between other countries themselves, we believe that there's a need to do so. And lastly, it is our duty, because we have seen in the past, and we are still witnessing it right now, when those attacks are happening, like terrorist attacks, whereas ISIS is working to other countries, for instance 9/11, we see that suddenly we have wars being triggered from it. So we are telling you, isn't it better to torture some people, even some innocent ones, at the cost of preventing the war from happening, instead of having those huge terrorist attacks that may lead to one? Yes, closing.
We do not say that we should not bring them to interrogation. We just say that we should not deceive them and should not torture them.
Yeah, we agree, but we say that they won't give you information if you ask them kindly, hey, sorry, could you please tell us what happened then and who was responsible for it? We tell you that the only way to get information from them is when they feel the need to tell us and when you coerce them or deceive them, or when they think that you're their ally and you know to fake you, when you're surveilling their phones and when they don't know what you're doing, it's the only way of getting information. Because when I'm talking about organizations like Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram or ISIS, they won't give information willingly, and because they are sworn against your own country, the only way of getting those is this one. So now, why this won't lead to abuse? So they tell us, we'll start torturing people all over the place. We are telling you that this won't happen, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because first of all, if for instance, any country now, like any European country goes to torture people from another country, obviously, randomly and many, obviously this creates some hostility, right? So obviously those countries have their own interest is to be as efficient as possible torturing people, because this is like a breach of international thing. So for instance, if suddenly the United States are torturing many German people, the German government might get upset and they will act towards it. So we believe that there are control mechanisms between countries out there that prevent, no thank you, out of order. There are many mechanisms out there that prevent from those things from happening. Moreover, what we believe, ladies and gentlemen, is that those countries depend on good relations with each other. So for instance, right now the United States depend on their cooperation with Germany. That's why they won't start, for instance, torturing random people out there. But it's exactly because those operations depend on international relations. We believe that foreign people won't be abused randomly. And lastly, we have international codes and United Nations and police systems, international police system, which exactly do that. The operations, for instance, they try to carry out as many international operations as possible and as efficient as possible, are there to monitor and double check what every nation is doing. So that's why we believe that in the short term, ladies and gentlemen, there might be some unbalance, right? So we might torture more people than possible. But as it is right now, for instance, we torture only the ones that we need to and only the ones that feel that we should do. And exactly because we don't have any huge problems with this happening, and because there's a necessity to do so, we beg to oppose.
Speech, all the top off for an interesting debate, and the bottom half would like to remember addressments.
Honorable Chair, if the only reason why we should not torture people would be the ethical consideration that we sympathize with their sufferings, then we may believe the first opposition that is saying that we are saving many more lives if we're doing that. But what we are going to prove today as the second government is that these methods are so massively inefficient that they do not justify the sufferings and they lead to even worse results in fighting the international crime. So first of all, what type of crime we're talking about? It's exactly terrorism. It's not some small crime like shoplifting where, of course, it would be easy to extract information. But what we are saying today is that when we use torture to get the information about the terroristic organizations, we just don't reach the result. Why? Because different people react differently to the torturers. Innocent people or people on very low level of organization, they will suffer indeed, they will reveal some information. Maybe this information will be misleading because they're just trying to give any information in order to get rid of this torture and stop this suffering. But now, what we see that if we have the actual members of terroristic organizations, they're usually well prepared because these organizations, they know how they may be treated in such states, and then they will prepare the members for such treatment. How? There may be different techniques of dealing with certain kinds of tortures, psychological techniques. There may be also suicide pills. That is something that was very massively used during the Second World War to prevent the spread of information to enemy forces. Terrorism is extremely well organized, and that is why when you catch the actual member of a terroristic organization, he's already able to imitate the innocent one. He's already able to get misleading information to you so that you spend your time on this misleading information and do not progress in investigation while the time is of huge matter here. That is extremely important in this case. Moreover, we see that all of these people, they always get partial or misleading info themselves. They may believe that this information is true because they were told so by those superior to them. And in such situation, we just don't get any information. Moreover, the innocent also add to the mess because when they see that they're tortured, they do not understand what is happening. They're also decided on the status quo. Then they're more likely to randomly lie to people just trying to protect their own reasons, just trying to protect their own family or friends. In such situation, they're more likely to get to add to the mess. So what we get in the result during this investigation? We don't get the information we need. We get tons of confusing and self-contradictory information. We waste the time on checking and double-checking this information. And it's not putting the puzzle together as the physician argues, but it is just getting the mix of details of 100 puzzles and trying to pick the ones from the right one, not even knowing what is the right one. So all of these things make the investigation hugely inefficient, and this also adds to the perception of our citizens who believe that we're not efficient, we're not protecting them, we're not able to protect them. Second reason, we see that this hampers our success in further investigations, because when the innocents from targeted groups like ethnic groups or certain nationalities, when they see that they may easily be tortured by the police of this particular state, we would not get trust from this group. And it is not the general trust the first proposition is talking about, it's the trust from the group that we really care about, because that is the group that may bring very important information to us, because there may be witnesses, there may be somehow related to those involved into these affairs. And what is most important, it's not the trust from the person when they already get into the police station, but it's willingness to come to the police station and share information, because these people believe that the government is acting in the best interest of them. And then they would be much more likely to cooperate with the state, to give important information in order to help the investigation. And this is exactly what we miss under the case of opposition side, because when these citizens think that once they get to the police station saying that I know some information, they will get there and tortured in order to extract even more information. In such a situation, they're much less likely to go there. Third reason, go.
For the first few months of ISIS operations, we knew absolutely nothing about its own existence. How do we expect your very kind and polite measures to cooperate with the terrorist groups and be efficient?
Okay, when we have no investigation, we have cooperation and help from the citizens of those countries, then we get more information that would be the reasonable grounds to arrest them and put them to prison and to stop their operations. No problem here. Next problem. Why it is so bad as well? Because it hampers cooperation on international level. Because when we see that people from foreign countries do not trust us because they see how we're torturing their own fellow citizens, they're first of all much easier to sympathize to those stories, because these are the stories with human faces. They see how actual people are suffering, and they see how the state oppresses them. And this is not even the government that they elected, because they're the foreign citizens, so they should have the right to defend from that government. They're deprived of this right. And here, knowing that the government may abuse this information or just act randomly against innocent people, would have massive backlash from those societies in those countries where we may have other operations of those terroristic organizations. What is the result? These people that are pushing the politicians not to cooperate with our countries, and the politicians were very likely listen to them because their political perspectives depend on that. What happens next? We get less cooperation on international level, and this is very bad, because we cannot fight international organizations effectively, because what happens on our territory, on our country, is just a small part of the operations. We really need massive support from the other countries and from their investigative organizations. What is also important here? Once we are violating the rights of these people, we just can't get away with violating them, because we're violating the Convention of Human Rights that bans cruel and inhumane behavior towards such people. And in such situation, we're losing our moral grounds to continue the operations, and we're losing the reasons why foreign citizens may believe that we're legitimate to act in the best interest of the whole society of the world. This makes us much less likely to have some impact on the international area. So what we get in the result? Even if we may catch some of the actual criminals, so people with valuable information, this information would be lost in the huge amount of the unnecessary information that hampers the investigation. Moreover, there are very high chances that this information will never get to us because of the suicide pills, because of the techniques of resisting to the tortures. Moreover, we're just creating huge injustice that would prevent the further success in the investigation, because those people who could potentially help us, they would not be able to trust us. And this would also affect the international relations and how the cooperation would help on the international level. Because that is just so inefficient and creates so bad consequences for the country, I'm very, very proud to propose.
Speak for their speech, and we'll look over to the final students' today's debate and welcome the member of opposition.
You want to try? Yes, I do.
Oh, sorry.
It's very helpful for confused people like me. So both sides of side government talk about how you can rely on other techniques than the ones they wish to ban, primarily resting on the different rationales that lead to the idea that other people also have an interest to fight these terrorist groups, such as the local governments have an interest in keeping them efficient as well as opening, or there's popular support fighting against them from the great masses to fight against them as well as for closing. My question is, what if they don't? What if Middle Eastern governments are actually working, or at least tacitly not just leaving terrorist organizations that want to target, for example, Israel and the United States alone? What if we can't rely on them, which you're talking about? Now what? What if there are no sleeper agents or double agents that we can rely on? What if they really are that loyal? And we need a second piece of the puzzle. Speaking of the puzzle, you said that it was going to get too much data, too much information that we just can't make sense of. So why is it better than to give them half the puzzle? Why give them less information to make sense of it? That just doesn't add up. No, thank you. And let's remind that this caveat as to the popular support, it goes because, as the motion reads, this is all attempts of deception or coercion of foreign citizens. So even if these conditions that you say are necessary for sleeper agents, double agents to work aren't there, you're still not going to use these things, however necessary they may be. Now, moving on to my own points, I'd like to talk to you about the two different groups of people we're surveying, the deterrence effect of surveillance, and finally, that freedom and stability are not mutually exclusive, in fact, to the contrary. First of all, as I said, there are two different groups. There are the people who have something to hide and the ones who don't. That's basically the only distinction you need to make in international surveillance. The people who don't have anything to hide probably won't care all that much. They might not like the idea of having their bank records or phone records stored by the NSA, but they'll still be able to cooperate with the West. They'll still be able to go in. No, thank you. So they'll go in and we'll just bother them more, because what's going to happen is the group that does have something to hide now knows openly that first of all, there's a lot of restrictions on the West that makes it easier for them to circumvent, and second, whatever surveillance is going to be going to have to be public so as to not be deception or coercion. So they're just going to go even more underground. We're going to have even less information, including the stuff that these terrorist groups think isn't relevant, but which might actually be. As anyone who's watched late-night crime documentaries know, they can bust you on pretty much anything, like a shoe imprint or a spot of spit or whatever. So, therefore, it's better to have them only abstractly knowing rather than being told that they're surveyed. Have them abstractly know that they're being surveyed, but not exactly how. So to have them acting naturally, because otherwise you get my second point, which is the effect of deterrence. All criminals, terrorists, political, economical, whatever, are less likely to commit crime if they believe the odds of them getting caught are higher. Thus, if we have more efficient surveillance techniques, that in and of itself is going to create even less attempts in the first place to actually carry out terrorism. One second. So it's better to have them acting naturally, to have them not going directly in and telling them we're surveying you or we're going to hold back because you're a foreign citizen. So yeah, deterrence in and of itself is a better way to fight baddies. Yes.
But first, I'm not sure surveillance is what we should be focusing on when there's the issue of torture. Secondly, there are people who regret being in the terror organization, but well, guess what? They're evil. They do very oppressive things to their own. So there are people we can always find cooperate. There are important
sit down. All right.
Don't have to be that.
Good. Yeah, you're right. There are probably some people who get regrets, but even then, that's a caveat. You're always going to have cases where that doesn't apply. You're setting up all these caveats, setting up all these what ifs, but you're not giving us a safe way if that doesn't apply. Yeah. No, that was not. Sorry, my fault. That was not. I didn't actually take the guy. I was just saying a yeah to myself. Yeah. Moving on. My final point: freedom and stability are not mutually exclusive. The side government likes to talk a lot about human rights to privacy, but human rights to privacy are meaningless if you can't even step outside of your door because you're worried about terrorist attacks. Stability builds freedom. Stability builds safety, which means that you'll be free not just from government interference, but from terrorists, from armed paramilitary groups who are in themselves trying to restrict your freedom, who in themselves are trying to affect you in some way. So yeah, the human rights that you're talking about are meaningless in anarchy. Anarchy means that there are no rights, that there are no set rules. So these human rights that you yourself talk about might be theoretically damaged slightly by this mass surveillance, the vast majority of which does not come to any effect. But it's better than having your human rights violated, not by the government, but by everyone else who then can act freely. So what have I told you today? First of all, this motion is only going to mean that we're bothering the people who don't actually have anything to hide, the innocents. They're the ones who will be more or less okay with the idea of being surveyed. Second, we're losing the effect of deterrence, which is going to mean even more terrorist attacks on us, on local groups, because they'll be able to act that much more freer. And finally, and most importantly, freedom and stability build upon each other. You can't have an anarchist system if there's no deterrence to fight people from killing, from shooting, and thus restrict your freedom in other ways, even if they're not the government. And thus, the idea, the organizations that we typically think of as limiting your freedoms. Other groups are capable of that as well, and for that reason, we beg you to oppose. Sorry about that.
I'm going to let the speak for their speech, and the final speaker on the government bench.
Okay, thank you for the call. So first of all, just one point of rebuttal that won't be integrated in my summary speech. So they told us that this kind of techniques will somehow prevent a lot of people from going and joining terroristic organizations and committing terroristic attacks and etc. But we believe that the reason they join such terroristic organization won't be the same. A lot of people just believe that they are doing right thing. A lot of people believe that they are protecting their religion, for example, protecting their citizens, and etc. That's why we believe that they're really ideologically motivated. That's why even if we add some obstacles, we believe that such particular people won't change their opinion and still will go and join terroristic organization, because we didn't change and didn't remove the initial reason why they do so. To my summary speech. First of all, I will talk about efficiency of this particular information that we can receive from people whereas, second of all, I will talk about general efficiency, because we believe in our side of the house that efficiency of providing security to our own citizens depend not only on information we receive, but a lot about trust, and the last one about generally what more benefits or harms we bring in our society. First of all, about this particular part of information. So first opposition never proved us that this information will be somehow valuable. They just believe that they just took this premise as a given. But what we bring us on our side of the house is that first of all, a lot of innocent people may be involved. So opposition just told us that we want to be efficient, and that's why we want to innocent people and won't spend our time on this. That's just not true, because as first opposition also told us, it's very hard to prove the link between a particular person and a terroristic organization. And if it is the case that we cannot prove that particular person is somehow related, this means that we have just theory, and according to the theory, we can arrest people that are similar, for example, because they have similar background or similar just seems like people that come from the Middle East, for example, look like people from this particular territory, for example, have beard and something like this. That's why I believe that even if you want to be effective, that doesn't mean that we can know for sure who should be arrested, because that is just not the case. Because if we can know for sure, this means that we can use legitimate measures to do so. That's why I believe that a lot of innocent people will be involved. It means that we will spend a lot of resources on that, people that have no information. But what specifically my colleague brings you, it is even if we somehow manage to arrest people that somehow related to this organization, they also won't give us any useful information for few reasons. First of all, because some of them may be really prepared, and that's why we will not be able to get any piece of information. Second, as I already mentioned, they are really ideological motivated. That's why they will be really motivated to go through all these tortures or other procedures. That's why I believe that they also won't give us any kind of information. But moreover, we believe that a lot of people, even if somehow related, just don't have any valuable information, or this information is just is really not up-to-date information. That's why it also will be useful, because organization is really changing quickly. That's why even if we get some piece of information, we just through, but not right now. But moreover, we believe it's very hard to check this particular information, and moreover, as my colleague told you, these particular people have huge incentive not to give us any valuable piece of information, because they understand that this information may be used against the organization. They are ideologically motivated. That's why they really have incentive to get some useful information or just information that is not true. If we have wrong information, it necessarily means that we may take wrong decisions, that we may waste our resources on wrong decisions. It necessarily means that we have less resources to prevent real crimes, and that's how we believe that this information is hugely ineffective. No, thank you. Okay, now let's talk about even if we somehow manage to get some valuable information, why still worse on our side of the house, because we lose trust. So first, government told us that we lose trust of foreigners or lose trust of people in other countries. What we bring you specifically is about trust of people inside our countries, because we have in the West huge communities of migrants, and we believe that it's very important to have trust of this particular group of people. Why will we lose this trust? Because if they see that people that are coming from similar backgrounds, for example from Syria, are easily arrested by police and tortured, of course we understand that people that right now maybe even our citizens, but still coming from this particular background, for example from Syria or other countries, will understand that they also cannot trust the police, because they just will associate themselves with that person. Why we believe that trust is even more important than information? First of all, as I told you, because the quality of information from people that are not willing to cooperate is much lower than from people that openly go to police, freely go to police and actually want to cooperate. That's why they have incentive to give us right information, correct information, and all information they think may be valuable. No, thank you. Why we believe it's very important also, because, well, a lot of terroristic attacks that happen in the West is not so the danger is not from people that come from other countries, but from people that live inside our house. For example, terroristic attack on publisher Charlie Hebdo or in terroristic attack in Boston. We believe that it's very important to prevent terroristic attacks from our own citizens. Yeah.
Why are you willing to sacrifice preventing another 9/11 or a massive attack favor of investigating misleading information or for the few that will
Well,
lie.
we do not want to sacrifice, we want to save our people. What we are talking, that is just ineffective. And moreover, we need trust of people in our local communities, because a lot of danger just coming from people inside our communities, as we see in a lot of examples. Why is so? Because it's just now easier to be self-radicalized, just because you have some information in the internet. That's why we need cooperation of people inside this particular community to give us information about people that may change their behavior and now look suspicious. Not just because they have some contact with Al-Qaeda, but just because they read some information in the internet, and that's why they want to attack some other publisher or something like that. We believe, but moreover, we believe that terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram right now really focusing on their affairs on the Middle East, just because they war here, just because they're fighting to control territory here. That's why we believe that they produce less danger in the West, just because they have less resources to spend on it. That's why we believe that it's very important to have trust and cooperation of local people, because more danger just come from these particular people, and that's why we believe that if you want to somehow provide security in the West, we believe that we shouldn't implement this particular policy. For this reason, we believe
Thank you. The speech will go to the final speaker of today's radio.
Come on. Oh, thanks. Okay, whenever you're ready. Good. So, thank you very much. So today in my speech, I'm first of all going to talk a lot about my negative material to government's case and government's proposal here, and then in the end I'm going to reinforce the points being laid out by my previous speaker. But just to start off from the very beginning, as OK's burden of proof or like the work fulfillment, it would be to create, a good model and to explain the various things, what's actually going on. We try desperately to get a clarification of what they mean of deception, and it becomes very corroded throughout the debate what it actually means. And I'm here to prove to you why many of those things that side government, both opening and closing, rely on is in fact deception. Okay, but yeah, and also we get an interesting idea from opening opposition asking, okay, so the Western countries, they're not allowed to do it to foreigners, but do those foreigners include foreigners from other Western countries as well? Because it's being very, it's not very clear what the government's case is actually about. But so now, since it is has been a very important topic and attention throughout the debate, I'm going to describe a bit about deception. Right. So deception is deceiving someone, led to believe that something is in a different way. Surveillance is deception if the population is not aware of it. I personally do not think I'm being surveilled by my government or by any foreign government, but if it turns out that I'm in fact I'm being deceived, because it turns out, well, yes, I'm being surveilled. But even more important, opening government, they built most of their entire case on like their ideal scenario on informants. Informants is the best thing in the world. Yes, we think informants can be just fine, but informants is as deceiving as can be. It might be a link that the government, they have an agent, that is not from their own country, to say, but an informant, and especially an undercover agent, is someone pretending to be part of a terrorist cell or whatever, thereby deceiving those said foreigners. It doesn't get any more deceiving than that. Yes.
That's deceiving the members of the terrorist organization.
And they are foreigners. They're foreigners. Yeah. And those are foreigners. That's exactly what you're saying. And no, sit down. And then also, you basically make no distinctions whether it is criminals or innocents. But because whether those people be foreigners or not, they are still, or whether they be terrorists or not, they're still foreigners. And that's also a case we hear throughout side opposition, is that
when you do so horrendous crimes, as the Boko Haram, as many terror organizations, then you lose many of those either human rights or those privileges that you might otherwise have. But as we already heard from the government, they don't even have them in the first place, therefore they can almost not lose them since it is not applied in their country. No, thank you. Okay, so I'm also going to talk a bit about the status quo now, because, well, again, to continue with the informants, they tell us on their side of the house that in the status quo, where we actually do deceive and coerce foreigners, the informants would not work together with us. But, well, they do. We have the whole example of, for instance, Osama bin Laden, and they also say it's still going on. And those informants, they are helping us in the status quo, even though we are actually deceiving foreign citizens. So, I mean, so clearly it has no tangible effect what we're doing. It has no harm, so to say. No, please. Yes, and also, as I mentioned before, with the whole surveillance and deceiving, in the status quo, well, we are deceiving your own citizens. So you're actually saying that foreigners should have a better right than the own citizens because they should not be allowed to be deceived, but it's completely fine to do it for your own citizens. Take the NSA in the US. That's been, I mean, we have heard so much about it in the past couple of years, the whole whistleblower, Edward Snowden incident and all of that. Okay, well now to go on to CG. The reason I haven't spoke too much about it is because the only new material to bring is one point saying that using coercion, using torture will give you bad information. And we say, well, okay, that might well be true, and so we can do the interrogations as they suggest. That is not at all, really not mutually exclusive on our side of the house. Even though if you have the tools to torture, that does not mean that you cannot interrogate without torture. You're completely free to do so. We're not mandating that you have to talk to people. That is nonsense. No, sit down. Okay. So speaking about the tools, well, they also talk a lot about efficiency on their side of the house, that we should be as efficient as possible, and torture and raping people apparently is not very effective. And yes, we might agree to that, but it is good to have as many tools in your toolbox as possible when you have this to do. Because now, if you have to screw something like a screwdriver would probably be the best. But in any case, if you one day need a hammer, please feel free to use it. It might be in the rarest occasion, but we want to have our governments and such the ability to use those in those cases they see fit. No, thank you. Okay, yeah, and then, I'm sorry, there's so much negative material I have to go through. And so another thing to talk about in opening government is the whole idea that we're going to create bad relations with foreign countries, for instance in the Middle East, that they don't want to work together with us. But as we already said, if we take some of the biggest issues right now, as Boko Haram and ISIS, they work mostly in those countries, and I have a really hard time believing that if the United States is going to torture a member of the Boko Haram, then Nigeria is going to side with Boko Haram against an all-out war on the US. We do not believe that, and the same goes for ISIS, because we have the same goals, the same idea. If we want to fight this, and basically, you're also just saying that Western countries are not allowed to torture people, so we should let all our allies do it. So we let Turkey, Iraq do it, and so forth, because it's completely fine. They don't have human rights there. It's basically what you've been saying throughout your entire speech. Okay, but so we say that freedom and stability should go in tandem. That's why we have laws in our country. That's why you have to wear seatbelt. You can't drive too fast. That is to protect your stability, your safety, in order to take away a bit of freedom. And that we would rather have a safe, stable society than a completely free society where the human rights are just arbitrarily upheld because of anarchy. But yes, I show you why that side clearly not stand, and therefore the only thing left is what we told you. Thank you.